Hey, how's it going, guys, and welcome to the long-awaited Pixelmon Season 5 video. If you haven't seen the first 4 already, I highly recommend watching them and then coming back to this video. This is my greatest series on YouTube. With that said, welcome back, and if you are new to this series, what we do is we gather the best Pixelmon trainers and we put them into an SMP for about a month or two. Within that time, trainers will embark on a journey together, building their teams and preparing for the end of season tournament. For all the rules and stuff on the format that is used for this Pixelmon tournament, check the description. It is the first link down there. It is a Google Doc with all the specific rules, but just a little summary here for you guys. There is teams of 6, single battles, best 2 out of 3, and the bracket is double elimination. Only 2 legendary Pokemon per team, and yes, Ultra Beast, Mythicals, Paradox Pokemon, they all count in those legendary slots, and you only get 2 of them. Also, Dynamax is allowed. However, this is actually the last season that Dynamax will be allowed. Season 6 and onward, Dynamax will actually be banned. So, I mean, hey, I'm happy about it, but yeah, no more Dynamax after this season. So, yeah, that's pretty much the format. Now, if you've seen the previous videos, you know that I have won Season 1, got 2nd in Season 2, I won Season 3, and then I got 3rd in Season 4. And this season, well, I make history. But it didn't start out that way. See, I didn't have much time at all during this season, and teams were due September 24th. I finished my team September 22nd. However, despite this, I went into this tournament hoping to maybe make top 3 with my new squad of partners. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story about how I made Pixelmon history. And if you do enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Help me get to 1,000 subscribers before the end of 2024. Alright, let's start this video off by showing you the team. Chapter 1, the team. Remember in Season 3 when Les used a Galvantula named Mitch and it was my exact set from Season 1? Well, I'm doing the same thing but with her Meowscarada. Introducing Leslie, the shiny Meowscarada. When you get top 3 in a season, you actually get to start with a shiny starter. So, I chose Sprigatito. We're running the same set that Les did back in Season 3. Focus Sash is our item with the ability Overgrow, that way we can guarantee live and attack and then hit back with an Overgrow boosted Flower Trick. The rest of our moves are Knockoff for stab and item removal, Sucker Punch for priority, and U-turn for pivoting. Our EVs are full invested in speed and attack with the Jolly Nature, so we can maximize our damage and speed output. Welcome to the team, Leslie. Next up, we have our very dapper shiny Galarian Weezing named Sir Weezington. Special thanks to my friend Evan for gifting me his caught shiny Coughing. Sir Weezington has the ability Levitate, so he is immune to otherwise super effective ground attacks. He's holding the item Black Sludge for recovery, with the moveset being Defog for hazard control, Will-O-Wisp to cripple any physical attackers, Pain Split for further recovery, and then just being a genuine annoyance to teams. And finally, Strange Steam for a solid stab attack and potential confusions. Our EVs are 248 HP, 252 defense, and 8 special defense. This is paired with the Bold Nature to maximize our physical defense. Thanks for joining the team, Sir Weezington. Our next member was the last addition to the team, but welcome our pop star, Gaga the Espathra. Gaga's role is to find ways to set up on opponents' teams and sweep with stored power, thanks to also having Calm Mind and the ability Speed Boost. The rest of our moves are Substitute and Dazzling Gleam. Substitute allows us to avoid status conditions as well as just set up easier. It's also my favorite move in competitive history. And then Dazzling Gleam is for those dark types that are immune to stored power. The item we have is Leftovers for passive recovery for the substitute damage, as well as just overall damage that we might sustain. Gaga's EVs are 152 HP, 244 defense, and the rest in speed. This is actually a really standard Espathra EV spread, as it allows us to be decently bulky on the physical side, since Calm Mind is not just boosting our special attack, but also our special defense. And yeah, shout out Gaga for joining the team. Our next member of the team is one of the most iconic Generation 2 Pokemon of all time, Rojo the Scizor. Scizor is a hard worker and has a couple jobs for the team. Number 1 is being our specially defensive Bulkymon of the team, while also being a decently hard hitter with Technician boosted priority bullet punches. Rojo also has the job of being our dedicated Fluttermane and Xerneas counter as well. For the other moves, we have Knock Off for utility, U-Turn for pivots, and Dual Wing Beat for coverage. The EVs are 120 HP, 252 attack, and 136 special defense with the Adamant Nature. The EVs are 120 HP, 252 attack, and 136 special defense with the Adamant Nature. The HP and special defense EVs actually allow us to tank 2 +2 boosted Moonblast from a max EV'd Monus Xerneas thanks to our Assault Vest item, and our Adamant Nature paired with max attack allows us to 2-hit KO most variants of Xerneas and 1-hit KO majority of the Fluttermane variants. It also simply just maximizes our attack potential. So, welcome to the team, Rojo. Our next member is Groudon, who I was able to make shiny with my seasonal shiny legendary token I have, thanks to winning seasons 1 and 3. I named my Groudon Crim X because I wanted to give a special shout out to my good friend KJ. He's been in every season besides this one. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it due to being busy, but he's brought a Groudon every season, and this season, if he was there, his Groudon would have been named Crim X, and I just wanted to kind of do that in homage to him. And yeah, I just thought it was a cool name, and a shout out to one of my closest friends. And he actually made the thumbnail of this video too, so thanks KJ. Anyway, we are redefining Groudon in the format. Everyone has really used Primal, but I'm keeping it normal Groudon and turning him into the ultimate Dynamax sweeper. If you remember Riso the Zekrom from Season 3, Groudon here fits a pretty similar role. We have Swords Dance for setup, Earthquake for stab, Stone Edge for coverage, and finally, Aerial Ace. I know that sounds weird, but hear me out. Aerial Ace turns into max Airstream when Groudon Dynamaxes, which gives him a much needed speed boost. This can pair extremely well to help Groudon pick up some crazy sweeps, and our item is also Life Orb because the extra 30% damage helps us get KOs we otherwise wouldn't be able to. It also doesn't always force me to have to use Swords Dance. Our EVs are max speed and attack with the rest in special defense, and our nature is Jolly to maximize our speed, especially because we have Swords Dance plus Life Orb boosting our attack further. Rise Up Crim X. Our final member of the team is one of the mascot Pokemon from Diamond and Pearl, Astrius the Palkia. And yes, we are using Palkia's origin form. And I don't care what anyone says, I think it looks so cool. I just wish he had arms. Anyway, Pixelmon has this funny little feature that the origin forms of Palkia and Dialga can actually hold items, which isn't a thing in the mainline games, but it definitely should be. Because of that, we are running Choice Scarf Origin Palkia. Our moves are Spatial Rend and Surf for stab, and then Thunderbolt and Ice Beam for coverage. Our EVs are max speed and max special attack, with our nature being modest. Since we have Choice Scarf on a base 120 speed, I figured going modest would actually be a lot better for our overall damage output. So, welcome to the team Astrius, the God of Space. And with that, that is our team heading into Season 5. It's funny because, yeah, I didn't finish this team until 2 days before the tournament, but I always knew from day one that we would at least be using Groudon for KJ, Palkia because it's the mascot Pokemon, and Meowscarada for less, and I think our additional members hold the team together pretty nicely. And without further ado, let's get right into the battles. Chapter 2, Primal Clash. Keep in mind that throughout these matches, they are all a best 2 out of 3. Alright, so Zack is Toasty is my first opponent, and we were actually the first match of the entire tournament altogether. Zack has an insane team in Slurpuff, Dragonite, Torkoal, Galarian Corsola, and then both Primal Groudon and Primal Kyogre. Zack is also a great player, and he had a goal of defeating me. We've never actually battled in this tournament format before, so what better way to start it off? We both lead with our Groudons, his being Primal. I do some calcs, and I think this Groudon is going to be a more bulky double dance set, so I just go for Swords Dance. He switches into Dragonite, and I know it's risky, but I think Crim X can early Dynamax and do some huge damage, so I go for it. I Dynamax and use Max Airstream as he used Dragon Dance. I do yet another Max Airstream, taking the Dragon down and putting me at +2 speed. He sends in Slurpuff next. I decide to use Max Quake into it, wanting the special defense boost in case he just used Misty Explosion, but he had simply gone for Sticky Web. He did survive on Focus Sash, and thanks to that, it procs the Unburden ability. But thanks to the prior Max Airstreams, I just use Earthquake and I outspeed to take it out. Galarian Corsola is in next, but it falls to 1 Earthquake. However, the ability Cursed Body had activated, and I can no longer use Earthquake. Kyogre is on the field, and I simply use Stone Edge to pick up the KO. Groudon is out next, but I land another Stone Edge, taking it down to 37% before falling to the oncoming Earthquake. I send out Leslie next and go for a Flower Trick as he sends in Torkoal. I quickly switch into Sir Weezington, where his Body Press does pitiful damage. I use Defog to get rid of the webs, but he uses Stealth Rock. I once again use Defog as he goes for Flamethrower. I use Strange Steam as he swaps into Groudon, doing about 15%. He went for Earthquake, but thanks to Levitate, I'm immune. I use Strange Steam yet again, taking Groudon to 5%. And then the next turn, I use Strange Steam as he uses Stone Edge, and I take out the Groudon. He sends in Torkoal, which I simply just use Pain Split as he continuously uses Flamethrower. We continue this until Torkoal is taken down to 42%, and then I just simply send in Astrius and use Surf to KO the Torkoal, winning me the first battle of the set. The second match starts with me leading Rojo and Zach leading Slurpuff. I go for Knockoff so it can't activate Unburden as Zach sets up Sticky Web. I then go for a Bullet Punch to pick up the KO. Groudon comes in next, so I U-turn as he uses Rock Polish. I send in Leslie using Flower Trick while he goes for Swords Dance. We do solid damage. I go for it again as he uses Earthquake and activates Leslie's Focus Sash, as well as activating the ability Overgrow. We take Groudon down to 0.6%, but with one last Sucker Punch, Groudon falls. Zach opts to send in Torkoal next, so I U-turn and pivot into Sir Weezington. He had gone for Stealth Rocks, but I simply use Defog the next turn as he Dynamaxes and uses Max Flare. I do what I did in Game 1 and I simply Pain Split, but the Torkoal KOs Sir Weezington with the next Max Flare. I send in Gaga, who sets up a Freeze Substitute on the next Max Flare. I then go for Calm Mind since the Dynamax is over, but he swaps into Galarian Corsola. Next turn I go for Stored Power, but it only does about 28%. And then Zach reveals he has Haze, which takes away all of Gaga's stat boost. This is very annoying for me. I then go for Substitute as he tries to use Wisp. I go for Calm Mind again to hopefully make it so that the Hex won't break the Substitute, but Hex still does enough to remove that sub. So I go for Stored Power yet again, doing decent damage, but he had used Haze again. I just need to keep stalling this Pokemon out, so I use Substitute yet again as he swapped into Dragonite. I used Dazzling Gleam to break the multiscale of the Dragonite, but he had gone for Dragon Dance. I try to predict the extreme speed and use Substitute, but he actually just uses Dual Wing Beat, which does good damage to me. I go for Stored Power to do big damage, but I fall to the next Dual Wing Beat. I send in Astrus and use Dynamax to live his Dragon Claw and then pick up the KO with Max Wormwind. Galarian Corsola is out next, but I simply use Max Geyser to take it down. Torkoal hits the field next, but falls to the next Max Geyser. Kyogre is out, so I go for Thunderbolt, and I do about 49% before falling to Thunder. I send in Leslie and use Flower Trick to take out the Kyogre and end the battle, winning my entire set 2-0. GG's to Zach, and it was a great match, and you brought a crazy team. And with that, I progressed to round 2, feeling extremely confident in the driver's seat of my team. Chapter 3, Rematch of Champions. As I make it into round 2, I see my next opponent is Balak. Balak is a longtime close friend of mine and a fellow champion. I mentioned earlier that I had won seasons 1 and 3, but Balak actually won both seasons 2 and 4. We also haven't battled since season 2. Balak 2-0'd me in round 2, and I fought my way through loser's bracket to 2-0 him back, but then in grand finals, he 2-0'd me back, and we haven't battled since. I look across the battlefield at the season 4 champion, ready to conquer this obstacle. His team was Pelipper, Dracovish, Amoonguss, King Gambit, Fione, and Arceus Ground. A pretty scary variant of a rain team, well, plus Fione. But this was the time that I got my get back. The battle begins. Balak leads King Gambit, and I lead Leslie. I quickly switch out to Sir Weezington as he goes for Swords Dance. I burn the King Gambit the following turn while he goes for another Swords Dance. Even while burned, a +4 Gambit is extremely terrifying. I switch into Rojo, tanking the Iron Head. I then go for Knockoff, but a Sucker Punch actually takes down Rojo. I send in Gaga to try to play some mind games with Substitute versus Sucker Punch. However, that doesn't work, but the burn is wearing Gambit down. I send in Sir Weezington on the next Kowtow Cleave and eat it. I go for Strange Steam, taking Gambit down to 37% before falling to Iron Head. This is an extremely rough start, and I need a way out. Luckily, I have Crim X. I send him in going for Earthquake, but he swaps into Pelipper for the immunity. I switch into Astrius on the Ice Beam, and then I go for Surf, which is boosted now by Pelipper's Rain. He sends in Fion, who takes about 49%. I switch back into Kremex as he goes for Whirlpool, but he gets an unfortunate miss. I go for Swords Dance as he uses Whirlpool, this time landing. I then Dynamax and use Max Airstream as he uses Protect, doing a good amount of damage, but more importantly, I get the speed boost. He goes for his own Dynamax, but Max Rockfall picks up the KO. Arceus Ground comes in next, but a single Max Quake takes it out. Pelipper comes in next, and I land the Stone Edge to get the KO. Dracovish is out next, but a single Earthquake KOs once again. King Gambit comes out, and using Sucker Punch, it fails to KO me, and then it falls to Earthquake. However, due to that earlier Sucker Punch damage, plus the Life Orb damage that I took, Kremex falls. But Balak is left only with Amoonguss. I send in Leslie, doing 48% with Knockoff and surviving a Sludge Bomb. I then use Flower Trick for further chip damage, and then the Sludge Bomb KOs Leslie. However, Amoonguss is left at 33%, and I send in Astrius, who finishes the battle with Ice Beam. And with that, I've won the first battle of the set. The next battle begins. He leads Dracovish as I lead Rojo. I go for a simple U-turn, but a Vicious Ren is able to take Rojo down. I send in Astrius going for Spatial Ren. He swaps into Fion, but I land a critical hit Spatial Ren that takes down the wannabe legendary. King Gambit is in next, so I swap into Sir Weezington. He has a good prediction and had gone for Ironhead, doing over half of Sir Weezington's HP. I go for Will-O-Wisp, but Balak swaps into Pelipper. I switch to Astrius, tanking the Scald, but getting burned in the process. I go for Surf, predicting the switch, but Pelipper lives on 1%. However, Balak also tried to predict me and went for Scald, but due to the burn, Pelipper soon falls. For Spatial Ren, and it takes down the Dracovish. King Gambit is out next, so I swap into Kremex as he goes for Swords Dance. I go for the Dynamax, taking the oncoming Sucker Punch and then KO with Max Quake. He sends in Arceus. He Dynamaxes and hits hard with Max Quake. Kremex returns the hit and does 40% to Arceus. I then go for Max Guard to stall out his Max Quake, and I go for Earthquake for further chip damage, but Arceus KOs with the next Max Quake. However, Arceus Dynamax is now ended. I send in Leslie, and I get the Revenge KO with Flower Trick. Amoonguss is out next, so I go for Knockoff, and I do about 43%, tank another Sludge Bomb. I go for another Knockoff, taking Amoonguss down to 25% before falling to the Sludge Bomb. I send Astrius out, and end the battle yet again with another Ice Beam. And I have won the entire set in a 2-0 fashion once again, defeating the Season 4 champion. GG's to Balak. It was a great match, and for those of you that don't know, Balak is someone who actually in a couple of my Hex tournaments is in call with me, and I'm actually in call with him on some of his tournament runs, and we just kind of talk, help each other with calcs, and he's a super great player, so GG's Balak. And now with that, I proceed to the next round, which is the semi-final qualifiers, and I'm very terrified. Chapter 4, Into the Paradox. My next match is against Loki, who is the Hex MC head admin and a friend of mine that has entered many tournaments alongside me, and we were actually also in the PWC together. Loki is scary because not only is he a good player, but he had actually also gotten a sweep earlier in the tournament. He's rocking a team consisting of Electivire, Ribombee, Excadrill, Gyarados, White Kyurem, and the Pokemon that got a sweep earlier, Iron Moth. This is actually the first time Paradoxes have been allowed in the tournament, and they actually count as a legendary slot. And it's rightfully so because these Pokemon are insane. Loki and I both really wanted to qualify for semifinals, and so we entered the battle. The first battle begins with me leading Leslie and Loki leading Excadrill. I go for U-turn as he swaps into Iron Moth, who has a speed boost now from Booster Energy. I send in Astrius and I go for Surf as he tried to set up Substitute, but I break the sub. I go for Surf once again as he sends in Gyarados, and I do about 30%. I then send in Sir Weezington as he uses Dragon Dance. I go for Will-O-Wisp, but he uses Taunt to stop it. I then just go for Strange Steam as he uses Dragon Dance yet again, and I'm hoping for a confusion. I don't get it. I go for another Strange Steam as he lands a Waterfall and I tank it. Gyarados is now at 14%, but it takes down Sir Weezington. This is also pretty bad for me because not only is my Defogger out now, but Gyarados gets a Moxie attack boost. I send in Leslie and I use Sucker Punch to pick up the KO. Ribombee comes out next, and again this is bad because my Defogger's gone, so I just use U-turn into Rojo as he sets up Sticky Web. I think he's going to swap, so I go for U-turn and I get it right, and he swapped into Iron Moth. So I send in Crimex. I Dynamax and use Max Airstream, tanking the Energy Ball and getting the KO. His Kyurem White comes in, and thanks to the earlier Sticky Web, I'm only at neutral speed with the Airstream +1. I swap to Rojo, who eats the oncoming Ice Beam. I then use U-turn once again, knowing Loki will switch, and he swapped into Excadrill. And thanks to the U-turn, I break the balloon and bring in Crimex. I use Earthquake, but he had used Iron Head and he got the flinch. So I go for Earthquake yet again, barely surviving and getting the KO. Ribombee comes in next, and Ribombee takes down Crimex with Moonblast, but I send in Rojo. I finally go for Bullet Punch, but he actually swaps again here into Electivire. I do a big 30%, and then I swap into Leslie as he uses Dynamax and goes for Max Lightning. I use Sucker Punch to get good damage off, and then he KOs Leslie with Max Hailstorm. I send in Astrius and use Spatial Rend. I need a high roll, and luckily I get it, taking down the Electivire. Ribombee's in next, so I swap into Gaga as he goes for Stun Spore, but he misses. I predict he's going to use Skill Swap, so I simply Calm Mind. I go for Calm Mind again, but he lands the Stun Spore and Gaga gets parried. I then go for another Calm Mind, tanking a Moonblast, and then I use Stored Power the next turn to pick up the KO on Ribombee. White Kyurem comes in next and uses Draco Meteor to take down Gaga. However, I just send in Rojo, and with the next 2 Bullet Punches, I take down the Kyurem, winning me the first battle of the set. The next battle of the set, he leads Ribombee and I lead Leslie, and he tries to go for Stun Spore, but thanks to my Grass typing, I'm immune, so I simply U-turn to break the Sash and pivot into Astrius. I go for Surf as he sends in Electivire, and I do 72%. The following turn, I simply take down Electivire with another Surf. Gyarados is in next, and I have a play in mind. I Dynamax and I go for Max Lightning to allow me to pick a different move and KO Gyarados as he went for Dragon Dance. And unfortunately though, Dynamax does have this choice item glitch, so basically what happens is whenever you're choiced, if you don't Dynamax immediately and pick a move, like you can pick any move and the choice item won't block it because that's not supposed to happen with Dynamax. But if you pick a move, like I picked Surf earlier, and then Dynamax, you get one turn to use whatever move you want, and then the next turn you're locked into the move you used earlier. So in this case, I'm now locked into Max Geyser. He sends in Kyurem White, and I decide to just get some chip damage and use Max Geyser, doing about 18%, but he Dynamaxed his own Kyurem and used Max Quake to raise his special defense. I swap into Sir Weezington, but he had gone for Max Quake again. And thanks to the ability Turbo Blaze, he ignores Levitate and takes down Sir Weezington. I then send in Rojo and I go for Bullet Punch, but he swaps into Iron Moth and I do about 25%. However, since Rain is up, the max damage a Fiery Dance can do to Rojo is 97.7%. And I also believe he's just going to use Substitute here, so I go for a risky play. I use Dual Wing Beat and it worked. I break the sub and then get huge damage off, taking Iron Moth down to 16%. I finish off the Paradox Pokemon with a simple Bullet Punch. Excadrill comes out, so I go for U-Tune to pop the air balloon as he had gone for Swords Dance, and I send in Crimex. I go for Earthquake, but he swaps into Kyurem, who takes big damage. I then swap into Gaga, sacrificing her to the oncoming Ice Beam, and then Rojo comes in, and I go for Bullet Punch, but Loki switches into Excadrill. I do solid damage, and then I U-turn back after tanking an Earthquake, and Crimex comes out. I take Excadrill down with Earthquake, and Ribombee enters the battlefield. It survives an Earthquake after laying down Sticky Webs, and then it lands a Stun Spore, but Aerial Ace just takes it down. I don't know why I didn't just Aerial Ace in the first place. Kyurem comes in, taking down Crimex with Ice Beam, but I send in Rojo, and I finish the battle with Bullet Punch. And with that, I have won the entire set in a 2-0, and I have now qualified into the semifinals. GG's to Loki, an amazing, super hard-fought match, and this victory was definitely the biggest momentum boost I could have gotten. But I'm not out of the woods yet. Chapter 5, Facing the Iron Giant. I've now made it into the semifinals, so if I lose now, I'm still guaranteed at least 3rd place, and if I win now, I'm guaranteed at least 2nd place. My opponent is Evan Dowski, a good friend of mine and one of the owners of Hex MC. Speaking of Hex MC, they are actually hosting our tournament series now, so I want to give a big thank you to Evan and the rest of the Hex MC crew. And yeah, make sure you guys check out Hex MC. Their link will actually be in the description for their Discord, their IP. It is a phenomenal server. They do weekly tournaments, and it's just a great community to be in. But anyway, sorry, free plug out of the way. Let's get back into it. Evan has the scariest team for me to face in this entire tournament. He has brought Battle Bond Greninja, Gliscor, Ferrothorn, Cinderace, Iron Valiant, and Melmetal. This team is just super terrifying in general, but it's really terrifying for my team. Iron Valiant is a terrifying threat, and if you watched my Pixelmon World Cup video, you already know that I hate facing Melmetal. And also, I don't have any fire moves on this team to deal with Ferrothorn. Oops, that was definitely an oversight. Overall, yeah, the team is just terrifying, but I have been in matchups like this before, and I've been able to make it through. I just have to play at my best. The battle begins with him leading Gliscor and me leading Leslie. I go for knockoff to take off the Toxigor, but he played it safe by using Protect. I then go for knockoff again, thinking he'll actually switch, but he stays in and goes for Toxic, poisoning Leslie. I then know Sir Weezington can completely wall this Gliscor, so I swap into him. I go for Will-O-Wisp, knowing Evan is forced to switch, and he had gone into Ferrothorn, which is now Burn. I switch back into Leslie as he had gone for knockoff, which does laughable damage. I then use knockoff for good damage, and it hits back with Gyro Ball. I go for knockoff again as he sends in Gliscor, and Leslie falls to the poison damage. I send in Sir Weezington once again, and I go for Strange Steam as he protects. I go for the move once again as he uses Defog, and I'm doing solid damage. He then swaps into Ferrothorn on my next Strange Steam. I swap into Kremex as he goes for knockoff, taking off my Life Orb. I then use Swords Dance the next turn as he uses Gyro Ball. I then Dynamax and use Max Airstream to pick up the KO and get the speed boost. Gliscor is in now, and I use Max Rockfall as he had gone for Toxic. Gliscor is incredibly low, and I go for Max Airstream, but he actually just sends in Cinderace, who gets KO'd immediately to the move. Gliscor is back in, and I need to hit Stone Edge. I go for it, but he uses Protect. I then go for it once again, but I unfortunately miss as he had gone for the double Protect. I go for it a third time, but he lands a Protect, and then Kremex falls to the poison damage. Asterisk is in now, and I simply go for Surf, getting the Revenge KO on Gliscor. Iron Valiant is in now, and I actually have a range to KO, and he cannot KO me with Moonblast here. I go for it. I use Surf, but Evan had actually used Calm Mind. I take Iron Valiant down to 27%, and this is honestly great for me. I swap into Rojo as Evan Dynamaxes and uses Max Starfall, and I eat the hit. I then go for Bullet Punch, but Evan swaps into Melmetal. I go for knockoff, taking off Melmetal's Assault Vest, and I narrowly survive a double Iron Bash. I need to save Rojo, so I swap into Gaga, who is able to survive a double Iron Bash. I then get some chip damage with Dazzling Gleam before falling to the next double Iron Bash. I send in Asterisk and use Surf, and I take Melmetal down to 5%. I then take a double Iron Bash, and I go for the next Surf, which gets the KO. Iron Valiant comes in and falls to yet another Surf. Greninja is now out, so I swap into Sir Weezington and I tank the Dark Pulse. And the next turn I go for Strange Steam because I know it's Spec Greninja. I take Greninja down to 18%. Next turn, Sir Weezington survives on 3 HP and then gets the KO with Strange Steam. And with that, I have won the first battle of the set. The next battle begins. He leads Ferrothorn as I lead Sir Weezington. I go for Will-O-Wisp, but I miss as he uses Knockoff. I go for Will-O-Wisp yet again, and I miss, and he hits Gyro Ball, which does good damage. I finally land Will-O-Wisp as Evan uses Thunder Wave, and we trade status conditions. I go for Pain Split, which does good damage into Ferrothorn and gives Sir Weezington health back, and Evan had gone for Knockoff. Next turn, I get an unfortunate Para as they set up Leech Seed. I get Para'd once again as I use Gyro Ball. The next turn, I use Pain Split, getting my health back. I then use Pain Split once again as he swapped into Melmetal, getting my health back and doing about 20% to Melmetal. I then go for Wisp, and I miss yet again, and he KOs Sir Weezington with double Iron Bash. Someone please get Sir Weezington his monocle. I send in Leslie, and I go for Knockoff as he swapped into Ferrothorn, who is now at 32%. I switch into Kremex on his Knockoff, and I go for Swords Dance as he uses Leech Seed. I go for another Swords Dance as he uses Gyro Ball. I then Dynamax the next turn, and I go for Max Airstream, picking up the KO. Gliscor is in now. He uses Protect on my Max Rockfall, which is also a roll whether I KO or not with the next one. And unfortunately, I get a low roll and I fail to KO. I decide to save Krimex, so I swap into Astrius and go for Surf as he swaps into Greninja, and I get a really nice crit here. I then use Surf once again and get the KO. He sends in Melmetal next, so I just use Surf, but he Dynamaxes and uses Max Steel Spike, raising his defense. I then switch into Krimex, sacrificing him to the oncoming Max Quake. I send in Leslie and I go for Knockoff, taking the Assault Vest off of Melmetal as he goes for Max Hailstorm, KOing Leslie. I send in Gaga next, getting some chip damage with Dazzling Gleam, and he uses double Iron Bash, and actually he gets a crit here, taking down Gaga. Astrius is out now and gets the KO on Melmetal with Surf. Iron Valiant comes out and I swap to Rojo on the oncoming Moonblast. I tank a Thunderbolt and I use Dual Wing Beat, which picks up the KO on Iron Val. Cinderace is out next, so I just use Bullet Punch for the chip damage before falling to Pyro Ball. Astrius comes in next, and I need to tank this Sucker Punch if I am to win. Astrius lives on 27 HP and KOs Cinderace with Surf. Gliscor comes in now, but it falls to the next Surf, and I have now won semifinals with a 2-0 score. GG's to Evan, this was an amazing match, even if I did punch my desk after all those misses. And with that, I have now qualified for the finals. This means I have now been top 3 for all 5 seasons, and this is also my 4th season playing in the finals. The only season I actually wasn't in the finals was last season, where I lost in the loser bracket finals. At this point, I'm feeling great, but I know it's not over next, and the next player I have to face is someone who we call the People's Champion. Chapter 6, The Finals. As I wait for my opponent in the finals, it is none other than new player Calories 19, aka Logan. This is actually his first season competing, and he had the most battles of the entire tournament. And he climbed all the way here to battle me in the finals from Losers Bracket Round 2. Along the way, Logan had to defeat some well-established veteran players in order just to reach me, including last season's champion Balak, and even the player who eliminated me last season, Mendingi. Logan also brought an incredible team: Charizard, Ferrothorn, Flygon, King Gambit, Primal Kyogre, and Xerneas. They all had their highlights in various battles, and this team was extremely scary. As we made our way to the final stadium, I was nervous, but above all, I was excited. Logan was known as the People's Champion already just because he had done so many battles and they almost always went to a Game 3. I knew that this would be one of my toughest battles yet. The battle starts with me leading Sir Weezington and Logan leading King Gambit. I go for Will-O-Wisp immediately, but he swaps into Primal Kyogre. I quickly swap into Astrius, tanking the Origin Pulse. I go for Thunderbolt, doing about 60% and surviving Thunder. I then switch into Sir Weezington, trying to predict the Flygon switch, but Logan had gone for Ferrothorn. This is fine. I go for Will-O-Wisp while he goes for Thunderwave, and we trade status conditions. I go for the chip damage with Strange Steam while Logan goes for Knockoff. The next turn I get parried while Logan sets up Stealth Rocks. I use Defog the next turn, but Logan switches into King Gambit, using the ability Defiant to get a free +2 attack boost. Logan goes for Swords Dance as I use Will-O-Wisp and I get the burn. But as we've seen before, even burned King Gambit is terrifying. He goes for Iron Head, taking Sir Weezington down to 4 HP, and he gets the flinch. The next turn, Sir Weezington falls, so I send in Krimex. I use Dynamax to Max Quake and take down the King Gambit. Charizard comes in next, and I decide to go for Max Airstream after eating a Flamethrower. The next turn, I take out Charizard with another Max Airstream, and Flygon comes in next. I go for Earthquake because, well, I misclick, and his Earthquake does good damage to me. The next turn, I just use Aerial Ace to get guaranteed chip damage, going to about 39% before falling to the next Earthquake. I send in Astrius next, and using Ice Beam, I take out Flygon. Ferrothorn is in next, and I start chipping it down with Ice Beam while tanking Power Whips. The next turn, I take Ferrothorn down to about 36% before Power Whip takes Astrius down. I send in Gaga, and I think Logan is going to use Knockoff and then Thunderwave, so I go for Calm Mind. Unfortunately, I get the guess wrong. He had used Thunderwave and landed while I used Calm Mind. I then use Substitute, and he uses Knockoff, which actually isn't enough to take out my sub thanks to the burn. I go for Stored Power, only doing about 16%, while Pharaoh destroys the sub. I use another Substitute while Logan continues to spam Knockoff. I take Ferrothorn down with the next Stored Power. Xerneas is out next, and I use Stored Power to take it down to 21%, while Logan goes for Geomancy. The next turn, I get parried as Logan Dynamaxes and uses Max Starfall, taking out the sub. I then get parried the next turn as well, and Xerneas takes out Gaga. I send in Rojo, and I finish Xerneas with Bullet Punch. Kyogre comes back out, and I use Bullet Punch, taking Kyogre to low HP, but Rojo falls to Origin Pulse. However, the earlier burn on Kyogre takes it down, and since I had Leslie in the back waiting to battle, and Logan had no more Pokemon, I am the winner of the first battle of the set. The next battle, I'm certain he'll lead Kyogre, so I lead with Astrius, but he leads King Gambit once again. I decide to simply use Surf, taking Gambit down to 47% while he uses Swords Dance. I go for Surf again, but he swaps into Ferrothorn. I switch into Sir Weezington as he used Thunder Wave. The next turn I go for Will-O-Wisp, but Logan switches into Xerneas. I swap to Leslie as Logan uses Geomancy. Logan Dynamaxes here using Max Starfall. I live thanks to Sash and land a good Flower Trick, but Xerneas still has 51% HP. I use Sucker Punch for a little more chip, and then Leslie falls to the next Max Starfall. I send in Rojo next, and I use Bullet Punch, and then narrowly survive the next Max Starfall. The next turn, I use another Bullet Punch, but Logan swaps to Charizard, and I do about 26%. I go for another Bullet Punch before falling to the oncoming Flamethrower. I send in Astrius going for Surf, but Logan pivots into Kyogre, tanking the Surf. I then use Surf once again, getting a lucky crit and taking Kyogre down to 27%. Logan had gone for Water Spout, which does nothing now. I use Surf once again as Logan switches into Ferrothorn, so I pivot back into Sir Weezington as Logan attempted to use Thunder Wave once again. I go for Will-O-Wisp, but I miss. Logan does little damage with Power Whip. I go for Will-O-Wisp once again as Logan swapped into Flygon. The burn is incredible here. I then realize this thing can't really do much to me. He goes for Earthquake, predicting the switch, but thanks to Levitate, I'm immune. And Strange Steam had also done huge damage. I then switch into Astrius, predicting Logan to swap. I use Spatial Ren, taking out the Charizard. Logan sends in Xerneas, and I send in Sir Weezington. He does good damage with Moonblast before falling to the burn damage. King Gambit is out next. I simply use Will-O-Wisp, burning the Gambit as he had used Swords Dance. I send in Astrius as he attempted to use Sucker Punch. I go for Surf, but Logan goes into Ferrothorn. I swap into Sir Weezington on the Power Whip, and I go for Wisp once again. This time, finally landing it on the Ferrothorn as he used Knockoff. I use Pain Split to help do some chip damage to the tank. I use Strange Steam as he sends in Kyogre, who lives on 2%. I swap into Astrus on the Origin Pulse, and I use Surf to take down the Kyogre. Logan sends in King Gambit. He lands a Sucker Punch before falling to Surf. Flygon comes in next, but it falls to Surf. Ferrothorn comes out, and I use Surf to do as much chip damage as I can before falling to Knockoff. I then send in Crimex, and to show my respect and admiration for Logan's run, I Dynamax and end the battle with Max Quake. I have won once again in a clean 2-0, and with that, I am officially the Season 5 champion. This is now my third season that I have won, and I didn't lose a single match. All my matches were done in a swift 2-0, resulting in a flawless victory. This has actually only happened one other time. A player in Season 1 had done this as well, and that was me. Only difference is, back in Season 1, the competition was a lot smaller. There were only 8 players in that season, and while me going flawless back then was impressive, this season's run blows it out of the water. There were 18 players this time, and the competition this season had never been stronger. And I was still able to take the crown for the third time while doing it flawlessly. Once again, proving to everyone why I am the best Pixelmon trainer. I want to say GG's to all my opponents and firm handshakes to all the players in the entire tournament. Thanks again to HexMC for hosting the Season 5 World and Tournament. And of course, thank you for watching. If you guys want to check out any of this stuff live ever, like whenever Season 6 rolls around, I live stream it all on my Twitch channel, link in the description. Seriously guys, this is my favorite series to do on YouTube, and I greatly appreciate all your support. Make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe on the video. And real quick, just a couple shout outs again to HexMC for hosting. Shout out Balak because he actually helped me do some prep and calcs for my semifinals match. And also I want to give a big shout out to just everyone for joining in the tournament. Benny for being now my head admin in the Pixelmon series. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I just look forward to battling everyone again in Season 6, as there will be a whole new format with Dynamax banned. And no matter what happens in the future, I know that after this tournament run, I have made Pixelmon history. I know this only means the target on my back grows larger, so to all the people aiming to battle me for the champion title, I'll be waiting.